All right. So what we want to do is to work on to creating a dashboard for sales performance. So usually when you want to do sales performance or any dashboard analysis, you are sent a data set. Most times people just go ahead, or some people just go ahead in utilizing the data as it is or as it was given. That is, even after cleaning the data to perform their data. But there are certain levels of transformation that should go into the data. For instance,
Sorry, sir, I can't hear you.
you can hear. Can you hear me now?
It's,
Can you hear me now?
it,
Can you hear me now? Okay. So, like I was saying,
okay, I can hear you now.
like I was saying, most often when data analysts are given data to analyze, they just go ahead after cleaning the data. Some people are not creative about it and just go ahead and analyze data they are given. However, if we look at the data set before us, we will realize that there are some missing columns. That is, columns we have to calculate, things, insights that must be generated. If you look at this age group, this customer age group, you realize that I've taught you how to identify whether they are text just by looking at it or whether they are figures. And you know that these are in age groups. Okay. So now that they're in age groups, we could creatively just find a way to just to label rather than have them as this number, okay, or as numbers. You just need to find a creative way to label them. So in this session, we'll be using DAX to create measures as well as calculated columns. We'll be using several functions to do so. We'll also be doing some time intelligence. We saw how we could separate dates using the delimiter. But in DAX, we could use some time intelligence uh, functions to split this column as well by just extracting the data we need within the column. Okay. So now, what is DAX? DAX is an acronym for Data Analysis Expressions, and it is a powerful formula language used in Microsoft Power BI, in Power Pivot, in Microsoft Excel, as well as in some software as a service platforms, even in, I think, SQL as well. So now, what is the purpose of DAX? DAX is very essential for data analysis. Why? It's essential because DAX can be used to perform complex calculations in data models to derive insights, number one, to summarize data, secondly, and to create dynamic reports. In Microsoft Excel, it will be easy for us to say we want to summarize data using what? Pivot analysis, right? In Power BI, for instance, we need to also do something by summarizing data. And summarizing data, we basically summarize data by creating what we call measures. Okay. Then we can add columns. For instance, this sheet we see open here is from Microsoft Excel. We could basically add column by easily just multiplying, subtracting, or doing some basic arithmetic, right? But in DAX, what we do is that we create calculated columns to make sure that we can just calculate across or to fill throughout our data set. We are going to see how we will do that. Okay. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, that's beautiful. So now I have launched Power BI, and I'm going to save this Power BI as let me save it as or let's rather save the file as say DAX 2, okay, and basically put it in a document so that we have it as saved file DAX 2. Okay, so we want to start by bringing our data into Power BI. So our data is in Microsoft Excel. We are going to also learn in future how to do that from the SQL server. But I just want majority of you to reach the SQL part or the SQL part of our videos, of our training materials before we get into that in the live class. So now we want to import from Excel. So it will open to where you have it in your computer. Then we click on it to open. So it is basically connecting now. We will have our data imported shortly. But remember, before the data is imported into Power BI, it passes through something, and that thing is Power Query. So we have our Power Query Navigator here. We have two separate sheets here. You can see that when you click on the sheets, you get an overview of what you have in that sheet. But we want to import the data sheet. So when you check it, like I said in previous class, you see your load, transform, and cancel. So we want to load directly to Power BI now. We don't want to go to Power Query to do anything within Power Query. So we want to go and work with Power BI. So we just load it into Power BI. And once you click for your data to load, you are going to see that your data begins to load. And once it loads, it turns your report view into a Canva where you impute or your visualization. That is why it says now build visuals with your data, because it recognizes a connection of data. So now, in our introductory classes of Power BI, I made mention of the three reports. So if we go to our table view, our three views rather, if you go to our table view, you are going to see the data we just imported. And if you expand this data, you are going to see all of the headings, I'll call now variables we have from our data set. So what we are trying to say is that it's either this is not enough for us to go on with a great or to generate insight for sales performance, or we don't have our data categorized effectively. So that is why we have to use DAX to continue to enhance our data for visualization. In this class, once we perform this analysis, what we will do now is to save our data set to perform what dynamic reports in our next live class. So I'm certain that we will have a full class next week, Saturday, so that we convert this or the outcome of this class into a dynamic report that we will all admire. So I talked about time intelligence, right? Using DAX. Let's look at this date column. If you look at this date column, you see that we have the weekday, we have the month, and we have the year. So what we would like to do is to create three additional columns or separate columns that will reflect just the year, the month, and the day, the weekday. And for the sake of learning, I will show us two ways we can achieve the day and the month for the sake of learning. So we will take out what we don't want and leave what we want for our dashboard. So now we have the Home tab, the Help tab, the Table Tools tab, and the Column Tools tab in are based because of the view we are in. If you come to your report view, you have different tabs. If you come to your table view, you have different tabs to help you with commands for analysis that is related to your table. If you do so in the model view, you also have different. So I need to make that point clear so that we wouldn't say, oh, I don't see my table tools, I don't see this. Okay. So on your table tools or your column tools, you are still going to see calculations, right? You are still going to have calculations. Okay. When you come to your table tools, you still have calculations. You see the calculations group of commands where you have new measures, you have quick measures, you have new column and new table. When you come to the column tools, you still have calculations for column, right? So let us go to our table tool so that we have access to this. For the meantime, we are going to be adding a new column, right? So it's only fitting that we click on new column. When we click on new column, it's going to add an additional column. This column now, you can see it, it doesn't have a name, neither does it have entries, and you can see that with the errors it shows. So what did we want to do originally? We wanted to separate the year, right? So with that, we can do write a formula by stating the name of the column first. That's why you see column equals. So the name of our column in this case will be year. So let us have year equals. So this our new column now. Instead of having it as a column, it will become year, right? So we want to use the function year. We want to call the function first, year, right? You can say it's a function in the DAX library. So now we want to use the function year. When we use the function, we want to tell the function that we are referring to a particular table. This is the table we are referring to. And this table, remember, it is called data. Look at it here. Table data is made up of 101 rows, and the column number of columns is there. So now this table is called data. So I have to open single quote, and you see immediately I did that, you can see the data, the name of the table. So the name of the table is data. I close my single quote. So in this data table, I am referring to a particular column. That column has a name, and the name of that column is date. So I have to put the name of that column in square brackets. So I'll say square bracket. The name of that column is date, as in that, as spelled and written in that column. So now all I need to do is to close my parentheses, because I opened the parentheses, indicated the name of the table, then in reference to the name of the column, right? So what I'll do is that what this does, once I hit enter, is that it takes ye from this date column, from this data table in the date column, to create a new column for us. And once we hit enter, we will see that happening for us. You can see now it has been subtracted: 20, 24, 20, 22, 21, and 20, just as we had it here. Okay? I hope that is clear. We have done that. Okay? So now, I will show us two ways we can do the month and the weekdays. The first way I will use is that I want to take out this day as Tuesday. All right? I want to take it as Tuesday. Or let's do the month first, right? So you can either take this month as October, or you take it as the number of months, as in months. You know, we'll say, I think October is the 10th month, right? So that's the two ways I want to show us how to do this. So it depends on what you really want to be reflected on your dashboard, and how you want your reports and presentation to go. That is why I'm showing us these two ways. Okay. So we want to add a new column again. And this new column, we will call this new column what? We'll call it month, so that we know that this new column is the month. If we say month equals the first way. So we want to take the month now. So we will, instead of saying month, this is the first way. The first way I said, we are going to just take the name of this month, right? So to do that, we will say format. Okay. That's the function we are going to use. We are going to use format. We are going to open our parentheses. We are going to now refer to our table name, and our table name is data. And we have to do that in single quotes. So now we have to also now reference our column. And our column, we reference our column in square brackets. So our column name is date, and we close that square bracket. So that is not enough, because we want to present it in a month format, okay? And we want to present it as what? Strings, as text. So we'll say comma, and then we'll impute the format, okay? That is about 4Ms, right? Then we close it and close our parentheses. Okay, so once we do this now, we hit enter, we should see that we have taken October to a new column that we will call month. So let us hit enter now and see what happens. So we have successfully taken October to, that is, we have copied October to a column called month. All right, because we used the format formula or function. But what if we wanted to take October as the number of the month, rather than the name as we have it in our present format? So we are going to add a new column, and mind you, we can't add a new column with the same name. So what we will do is just to add maybe an S, so that we have something different. At least we have them close by. We can decide to remove anyone as the house deems fit. So let us go ahead and add a new column. And this new column now, we will call this new column, we'll call this new column months, so that we have a different presentation. So months now will be equal to, so I want to now use the month function, right? I have the month function. So I'm opening my parentheses. I'm going to now refer to my table, which is data in name. Then I'm going to refer to what? The column name, which is date. Okay, we close it. Now, this way, if I close my parentheses, it knows that what I want you to do is that I want you to come to this data set, come to the date column, and not any other column, the column. In the date column, I want it to tell me the month in this date arrangement here in a new column. So if I hit enter, that is what it should do for us. And you can see October is the 10th month. So we have it as 10. So if in any way we wanted this, we could say, okay, we just want to know the number, the month in number, rather than the month as text. So it depends on what you really want. Again, how you want your presentation to look like, and what is in your mind, or what has been requested of you, or what is in your creative process to achieve. So if you don't want any, say you want to take out any, you just need to just right click on the month and just say delete. If that is what you want to do. Okay. So as the house determines, which one should we take out? Which one are we taking out?
month with the number.
The one with the number. Okay. So we are taking this one out. We are taking months out. So we now have just the month with the October. So we have one other thing to do. Take out to have a new column with the weekday. So I wouldn't go ahead to show you the second way for the weekday, because the second way for the weekday will just to use weekday, right? Let me show you something, right? But I'll just use one way and basically explain the other way. So we want to add a new column, and in this column, we want to call this column weekday. So it is possible that we use the weekday function. But if we are going to use this weekday, we are going to have it as a number, just as we use the month and had the month as a number. So I think Tuesday, if a week starts on Sunday, Tuesday will be the third day. So that is what it's going to be. Wednesday, the fourth day, and so on. So that is the number we are going to have if we use the weekday. That is, if we use something like this, say weekday, we say data, right? We're referring to data, okay? Then we say it's the dates column. The dates column. If we close this now, what we have is numbers instead of the days in the week as we have it in our format. So if we want to have the days of the week as we have it in our format, say Tuesday, Wednesday, just as we have it, what we will now do is to use format. Okay, it's to use format. We refer to our table, refer to our column, right? Then we determine the format for day. Okay, we close this, and then this will give us a new column for the weekday we have here as it is in our format. Okay, so if we hit enter, we are definitely going to have a new column with the weekday as we had it. So now we have done some time incident analysis where we were able to use DAX to calculate new columns, now to have the year separated, the month separated, the weekday separated. So you see now that we will have more flexibility in generating insights that will be relative to our analysis. Okay. So now, still on calculated columns, if we look at this data closely, we have units sold and we have average price, but we don't have a total, right? We don't have a total column. We don't have a column where we have a multiplication, right? The total sales revenue, if we add a column called the total sales revenue, is going to be that is a multiplication of our units sold by our average price. That is to say, we sold 150 units here, and we sold each unit at 500 naira. So if that is what happened, we need to multiply the number of units we sold by the unit price. And that will take us to a column that we have to create that we'll call total sales revenue. Okay. So let us create that column now. So we want to call this column total sales revenue, right? That's what we want to call the column. So we'll say equals. We want to multiply our units sold. We want to multiply our units sold by average price. So if we go ahead . and say, let's do this way. Hold on, please. I don't want
Yes.
So the correct syntax is that we always refer to the data, refer to the table name before we even refer to before we go ahead and refer to the column from which it is or where we can find that in our table. So to calculate these total sales in revenue, we multiply units sold by average price. But we cannot just do it as Microsoft Excel, where we'll just say unit price multiplied by average price. In this case, we have to always make reference to our table. Okay. All right. So let us add a new column. Another column we need to add is our, let me see. I think we need to add a customer segment, right? If we look at, or let's add one more column that talks about gross margin, okay? Because if we see this now, we look at these are margins. These are margins is in the percent, right? Is in percentage. We just look at, we want a 25% gross margin here, all right? But again, if you take a look at this total revenue, right? We cannot just use this gross margin, because this gross margin is indicative but not calculated. Because what we need to do is to know the gross margin that we have of this total revenue, the gross margins we have of this total revenue. So we need to create another column called the gross margins. Okay. So let's add a new column, and that new column we will call gross margins before we go into others. Gross margins. Okay, we'll say gross margins equals. So what we need to do on gross margins, before we even go ahead to think of the formula or the syntax of our formula, we need to really look at what we need to do. If our margins are in percentage, how do you calculate a percentage of something? What we need to do is first to say this total sales in revenue. That is, we need to do that, total sales in revenue. Then we need to multiply by the percentage of this, right? By this in percentage. But are we sure that if this is not in percentage, maybe they'll just have written the heading. So what we'll do, we will just do this multiplied by this divided by 100. So we'll definitely get our percentage. So usually very beneficial to use, like for me, I still use my pen and paper. Okay, what do? I want to calculate this. What should this be mathematically? Before I go ahead and say, okay, let me use the formula using the right syntax to achieve that. So in this case, gross margin, to calculate gross margin, we want to use our total sales revenue column, right? We want to use that total sales revenue column. And where is it? We want to refer to this. We also want to multiply this column, to multiply this column by our gross margin column, right? Divided by 100. Okay. So we want to do it this way. In case you don't understand, you let me know if you don't understand, or if you don't want to cut into the class, what you do, you just write your questions on a sheet of paper or in your books and ask when we are done with the class. So to calculate gross margin, we do this. If we hit enter, we should have our gross margins calculated. That is to say, out of 75,000, our margin here is 18,750, for instance, in this. So it makes sense to say that we this is our margin for gross profits, right? Our margins for gross profit. Okay. All right. So we have successfully added that. Now let us look for, because we can definitely calculate measures that look at now. Remember, recall that we are still calculating columns, right? And you'll notice here that every column we calculate is presented here in our data review or data pane. So now what we need to do, I think we have calculated everything we need to calculate in the column. So now we just basically need to do a little bit of conversion to make sure that we can actually use our data, to make sure we can actually use our data for a proper dashboard. Because first of all, let's come and look at this customer age group. This customer age group, you can basically filter through, right? You can say, okay, these are the age groups here. But if you are okay with this age group, there's nothing wrong with leaving it this way. Say you have 18 to 25, there's nothing wrong. But what if you really needed to switch this number? You need to switch this into a different kind of text. We have two ways. You could use the if formula. You could use the switch formula. You could use the if formula, just that the if formula will be a little bit long when you say if 18 to 25, you understand? Use this and that. So we can use that. But what we do is that we can just basically just use switch to make sure that we switch this into something else that we want. Okay, so that is just what the switch function does. You can use the switch function in Microsoft Excel as well. You can use it here as well. So now let's add a new column and call it customer segment, right? Call this column a customer segment. So we want to segment our customer. So this column is now customer segment. So to calculate our customer segment, remember I said we will use, sorry, I mistakenly pressed this. To calculate our customer segment, remember I said we will use switch. So if you see what I did, you can add more lines to your DAX formula areas. What I did was just to press down Shift and Enter. Okay, hold down Shift on your keyboard, then press Enter. Because if you just press Enter once, it will just go ahead to run your formula. So I want to use switch. Okay, that is the function switch. And I open my bracket, and you see now switch performs is like a switch is like a conditional function, right? And when you're writing a condition, you begin to have let me use dependencies. So now, instead of us starting from the beginning here, we basically can just go ahead and start from where the indentation that Power BI wants us to start, so that we basically have our correct result. So we want to say true, right? Use true as well. True is another function. Then we go ahead and hit Shift Enter. Remember, a Shift Enter. If you take a look at this now, you see that there is a line under switch. As we keep going, there's a line under switch to show that all of these expressions we are writing, these are value. We say switch, we are writing the expression that is true. We've said comma, so we begin to enter our values, and as well as when we do comma, it will say our results, right? This is the syntax we are using. So let's go on. We want to say customer age group, that the column customer age group. I can just, when I put this, I can just double click on it, customer age group, right? I want to say, sorry, I want to say, I'm still not done. I want to say customer age group refers to, is equals to something. So if customer age group now, that is, say 18, we had 18, sorry. we had 18 to 25, right? And remember, I am putting this in double quotes because it's a text format there. It's a text format in the, where is it? Let's go there. It's a text format here, okay? So we have to use it that way. So we are just basically saying that if it's true that we have in a range, say 18 to 25 in our customer age group column, what you do that switch 18 to 25, you see now, we have given our value now, we say comma, so we want our results now. Our result is that, let it be that these guys will be young adults. You just call it young adults. Basically, you can use anything you want to use. We say comma. Now we say comma. You see that it gives us another value, value 2. We keep going until we are done, until we write the end, which is the else. Okay? Shift enter to continue. You can see the line on that switch beginning continuously growing because we still have everything within our argument. Okay? So let us continue this and say we want to talk about customer age group again. Oh, sorry, I'm always clicking. You can see something now. As I double clicked, it felt like, okay, I want to say I'm done. You can see that it changed the young adults. Young adults was successfully changed, but we are not done yet, okay? I was supposed to just write it out, but no problems. Let's keep going. So we have the next group is 26 to 35. So it's a text, so 26 to 35. We close it. That 26 to 35, let's call these guys adults, right? Okay, and we close it. So we say comma. Let's go to our value 3 and result 3. Okay, so usually the switch function works with 3 arguments. So if you have less arguments, it will not perform well for you. You will not have the results you want. So let's go ahead and say customer age. I don't want to use double click anymore. Customer age group. Okay, then we close it and we say equals. Now the range we are looking at is 36 to 45, and 36 to 45, our results will be what? Let our results be mid-aged adults, right? Mid-aged adults. Okay, then we close it. Now, I think we have one more because when we checked that drop down on our customer age group column, we had 3 age groups. Okay, so I just want to do that. We are not done with this. You can see it has changed some, but we are not done with that. I just want to show us something. We had 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need to do the 4 of them. Okay, so let's go back to our formulas. Okay, so we need to say comma to have our 4th value now. We are still using the customer age group, which is equals to, now we have 46, right? 46 to 55. That's what we have in our data set. And we want to call these guys senior adults. Sorry, as text senior adults. Okay, so now that we have done this, we need to remember when we use our comma now, remember, if we are done with these values, what we need to end this argument with is with an else. But in this case, we are going to use unknown, right? So unknown instead of else, unknown. That is, if any this thing was empty, we'll definitely just say this age group is unknown. Okay, so we already have a closing here. So you can see all of these arguments, right? All of these arguments that we have here, you can see it linked to switch, right? You can see the dotted line links to switch. So we have these dotted lines for our indentation. So we have properly fixed our formulas and we are done with it. It's quite simple. It's simple, really, and it's straightforward. Okay, so we are done. We hit enter. And as we hit enter, we have our customer segment filled up adequately. So if we click a drop down on this, instead of having 18 to this, we have adults, mid-aged adults, senior adults, and young adults. Okay, so we can basically filter through, basically say we want just adults, and we can have just adults data set here, or we go ahead and just basically clear this filter. Okay, so that is us adding that column. So again, if you come to our stock, where is our stock? We had stock, right? Stock level. If you look at our stock level, we really need to categorize our stock level because, hey, it's not easy to have this, right? You can't work with this sincerely. It's not easy to have that. You can't basically filter this. So we need to categorize our stock level into ranges. So, and when we categorize them into range, instead of just leaving them as number range, we need to be able to give them a name, let's say a label, right? Let's say a label. Okay. So now we will create another another label for another column rather called stock level or stock status. I don't know which one will be most adequate, but I think stock status will be most adequate. I believe you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it's clear so far, right?
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. All right. It just takes practice and takes you to understand just how this works. One of the best things you do for yourself is just basically to ask yourself, why should we do this? Why should I do this? What is the reason behind doing this? Once you know the reason, everything is fine. Because if you know the reason, then application becomes easy. You begin to apply functions and formulas. We don't have too many functions like that in DAX. So application is what matters. Why should I apply this? Where should I apply this? So you see that it becomes very easy. Okay, so let's do stock. For instance, I've explained to us why we need to categorize this. We really need to categorize this because it doesn't make any sense for us to add this. It won't make any sense, okay? So we need to actually categorize this to say whether a stock is low, whether the stock is medium, a mid stock, or a high stock. We need to really know that. And we know from our key, for instance, if you look at a chart, most often you will see that we have key under. The key can basically categorize and say what we mean by low stock is say any stock lower than 200 is categorized as low stock. What we mean by mid stock is any stock say between 200 to 500, that is a mid stock. Then high stock is something greater than say 500 and above. So when we know that, and someone is saying low stock, you say, oh, it's lower than 200. Oh my God, we need to restock. Okay, so we even use that in programming where you're writing programming. Say, okay, when stock rather gets to less than 200, restock. So you are going to be getting report on the app, on your inventory app, restock. So when you open it, you open a notification, restock what? It's going to show you what to restock. So all of these things I'm teaching you is things we use in data science, is things we use in building models. There are things we use in even in software engineering. Okay, so I think it finds application across all of these. Okay, so now let us add a new column. And that new column, we'll call that new column stock status. We just want to know the status of this stock, right? We want to know the status of that stock. So equals now, we are still going to use switch again because we will be grouping and we want to rename those groups, call those groups something else. So I will say switch, stock status, enter the second line and say switch, open my parentheses, and I want this to be true for that. Say comma. I want the expression to be true, comma. So I need to now go ahead to begin to enter my values. So I hit my enter, shift and enter rather. So now we are on stock level, right? We say stock level. Where are you? Stock level equals. So basically, these have an undertone of if. Remember, I say switch function is a logical function, so it has an undertone. So I will say instead of equals, I will say less than 200, where that is the value. What will be the result? The result will be low. Okay, that will be the result. So if stock level is less than 200, let's say it will be low, right? Then let's go to the second value. So we say stock level now. Say stock level is greater than or equals to, say greater than or equals to 200. So we want the result to be, no, let us give a range. So say 200 and let's use and, okay, let's see, and stock level less than 500, the result now will be medium. Okay, the result will be medium. So we basically just gave a range there. So we say if stock level is greater than equal or equal to 200, and that we want a satisfaction of these two logics. If this is this and this is the, let it be medium stock. So it's still in one expression, okay? So let's go to the third. The third will be high, right? If it's greater than this, say 500, greater than or equal to 500 and above, it should be high, okay? So now we close our parentheses. So, okay, so if we look at this again, let's look at this one more time. We say we want to switch the values in stock level into a text for us to be able to aggregate our most appropriately. But now we don't have it grouped, so we have to group in between the commands. So we enter between the formula. So we say, let me just use the word if so that it rings in your ear. If stock level, the values in stock level is less than 200, so the result will be low. If the stock level is greater than or equal to 200 and the stock level is less than 500, that is anything between 200 to 499, let it be medium. If not, let it be high. So we have done that. Let's go ahead and hit enter. So when we hit enter, now we have a new column called stock status. This stock status column, if we click the drop down for filtering, now you can see we just have two, high and medium. So we do not have we have high and medium. We do not have a low stock. We do not have any stock that is less than 200. So if we do, eventually, we are going to have low stock. But compare this. You see this, right? High and medium. Compare this to this stock level we had before. So you see the reason why we had to do this. Compare that. You see? So now it is easy for us to create visualization to say, we want to measure our stock level. We want to know our stock level. So the ideal thing is to categorize the stock level instead of saying that our stock level is 200, our stock level is 211, our stock level is 214. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't make sense at all. So that is why it is important that we always know how to apply this and use them effectively. You can see now what we have done. We have high and medium stock. Easy, like that. So we can easily just categorize. We can just do a pie chart to say high, medium stock, comparing high and medium stock, stock levels or stock status in different products at different years. So that will be done so. Okay. So now that is all we've planned for calculated columns. Now to short summaries, say measures. And when we do measures, we will be able to, when we do measures, we will round up the class in preparation for next week's dashboard visualization using Power BI with our data set we've worked on today. And that is why we constantly save our work and we save it as DAX 2 so that we will continue to use it here. Okay, so now let's go to measures. So measures, we assess measures in our table tools. And to calculate measures, we just need to click on new measures. So what we want to do, what you can do in measures is like, measures are like, say you want to calculate sum, average, counts in Excel. You remember them. We talked about using formulas or basic formulas in Excel. You can say, how do I calculate sum in Power BI? The answer is using DAX. How do I calculate average in Power BI? Using DAX. How do I calculate count in Power BI? Using DAX. So you calculate them under measures. Under what? Measures. Okay. So now we have units sold, right? We have units sold. We need to actually know our total units sold. And our measures are basically most used in cards in visualization. We will see that in next week's class. So we want to give, just like we gave each table a name, we want to be able to give each measure a name so that instead of having measure, we have an actual name. For instance, we added a measure here. The name here is measure, but we'll have given this measure a different or a befitting name. And that name, in this case, because we want to calculate the total units sold here, that measure will be called total units sold. Okay, so we can do that. So when you hear total, what comes to mind is summation. Summation is what comes to mind. So to sum, we have to use the sum, right? You can see sum. Okay, so now we want to sum our units sold. So, but our units sold is in our data table. Okay, if you don't want to write it, once you write the sum, everything presented in this data table will be made available to you. But to just write it so that you always have this at your fingertips, you say data, single data, this is our table. Then we have the units sold column. Our units sold column, that's what we are looking for. Then we close our parentheses. It's only fitting that we close our parentheses because we opened one after the function sum, because we want to sum everything within these parentheses. So sum all of the unit column that is found in our data table. That is just what it means. So we'll hit our enter, and we have our, look at it, our total units sold. We have our total units sold, what's it called? Measure now. Okay. All right. So let's go to calculate our we calculated it, we made a calculated column called where is it? Total sales revenue. So let's just calculate the total of this revenue. We need a total of this revenue as a card. So let's use our calculated column to calculate that total revenue. Okay. So the total revenue again, what we do, we want to calculate the total, right? It's only fitting that we calculate, use sum, right? So we enter a new measure. We say total revenue, call that measure total revenue equals our total revenue will definitely be a sum of our data in the total sales revenue, this column. This column. We want it to be a total of this column. Where is that called? This column, right? So we open parentheses, and we are referring to our data table, right? And our total sales revenue column. Total sales, where is total sales revenue? Let's see that. Total sales revenue column. This red line shows that it is not not recognizing this. It's not recognizing this. That is what it just means. When you have a red line in your formula, it just means it's not seeing that. So let me see. Total revenue. Why do we have that? Come in, let me see. Do we have any total revenue here? We don't. So basically, let's calculate something else before we come back to it so that I would not waste our time. So we have gross margin as well. We calculated a gross margin. Let's see to calculate that gross margin. Let us calculate a total of our gross margin. Let me see. Total gross margin equals. Okay, I think something is wrong. Let's go back to new measure. Okay, so total gross margin equals so I don't know. I'm coming. There's something is definitely wrong. It's not, we're not having and none of you were able to say something. Uh, you know, hello, are you with me?
Yes, we are. We don't want to say anything.
You don't want to tell me?
Yes.
As I'm talking, none of you just want to say anything. I am not putting the function, so it's not saying I was not putting the function basically. So and
Yes.
you don't want to say it. That is so wicked.
Next time we will.
You see?
Next time we will tell you.
I was just what is there? I was not just looking at it, I was just writing basically. And you guys were not just saying anything. I was not putting the function, I was just looking at it. Okay, now we were to calculate total revenue, right? So let's go total revenue. Okay. So total revenue, and I said the total revenue equals we want to calculate the total of the revenue. The total means sum. I said it before. I don't know. It's just keep my head right. Okay. So we want to calculate the sum. The total just means sum just means the total of what we want to calculate. Okay. So what we then need to do now is a reference of table, then total revenue will be from this total sales revenue, right? So we want to use that, use that total sales revenue column. So with this now, we definitely get our a measure of our total revenue. We have a measure of our total revenue with this. Okay, so let's do another measure for I think the last one we will do for today will be our average price. We want to see our average price. So we need that for analysis as well. Our average price equals, now we are going to use a function average, okay? Because it's we need to calculate our average price from our data table. And I think that will come from our that will come from, let me see, let me scroll like this. I think that will come from our average, let's see, our average price. Is it average price column? Let's use our average sales rather, because we have average price. Let's say average sales. So that will come from our total sales revenue column. Average total sales revenue column. Okay. Then voila. So we get that, we have that that measure. Okay. So that is about what we cover for today. Right. Okay. So if you have any question, you let me know. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who is asking the question? Hello? Hey, I'm not hearing you again.
I don't think there's anybody asking a question.
Oh, nobody's asking a question. Oh, I thought somebody said they had a question. Okay. So is there something that that like maybe worries you about these, or so you're confident that this is something simple and you can grab it? You can share your thoughts with me before we close for the day.
Please just send the recording to the group so that I can rewatch it again, because I got lost in some process. But I think with the recording, I'll get it very well.
Okay. All right. All right. Definitely. We'll send it to the group. Okay. Send it. All right. So let's call it a day. Have a blessed day, everyone, and a wonderful weekend ahead. Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much.
Yeah, and you too.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sir, please don't forget about the financial data sets you promised to send to the group.
Okay, I will send it. I won't forget. Then please, I'd like to have a full house like this on Saturday next week, because that is when we are going to be actually using this for our dashboard. Okay.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Have a blessed day, everyone. Bye bye.
All right, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.